Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So it's time to give you an update on our small garden space and how we're going to grow this garden and turn it into a really productive garden for the coming year. So what we're going to focus on today's video is a lot on what we're going to be planting and our first plantings, and focus on the things that we're going to get into the ground right now so we can start getting an early harvest. The area's been a little bit neglected. I'm just struggling to get time out here. So this is one of the things that you can see that can become a problem, is when you're not getting out here regularly, when it can feel a little bit overwhelming. But take things in your stride, don't overburden yourself, and just work as and when you can. So you can see my tulips in the flower bed coming up. That's really nice to see. And my wood pile seems to be getting bigger and bigger all the time, and it's encroaching onto my growing area. So let's start off with this first, with my washing line planter. So there's some weeds that have cropped up in here. We're going to start and get rid of some of these and get this area ready for planting. So we've actually taken a couple of harvests from these chard plants, which has been a nice thing to keep us going. So I've just weeded that out. I just need to give it a little bit of top dressing with compost, so let's go get some compost. This is all sort of reclaimed compost from, I think it was probably a drug bust, but there's a load of compost going away, being thrown away, so I managed to get a lot of the compost back, and we can recycle it and put it to some use instead of it all getting thrown away. So I've got some young lettuce plants that I've had grown under cover. I'm going to start planting these out actually. Oops. There we go. That'll give us a good early crop, because these will get established quite quickly. So right in between, we've got a lot of flowers in here. So right in between the flowers, I'm going to get these lettuces in. And it's a beautiful sunny day. So what you've got to make sure is, when you're doing plantings like this, is that your plants can handle being transplanted in the sun. So what can happen is you'll plant out a lot of these things and you'll come back and you'll find them completely scorched by the sun, and they're no longer viable. One of the things that we can get bogged down with is we get bogged down with protecting plants from winter, and we forget about the effects of summer as well. So this is one of the things that you've got to be careful of, is making sure that your plants are protected from the sun. If I just left this in the scorching sun, what would happen is I'd come back and they'd all be withered to death. Because this has the added benefit of being the clothes line, we'll get some clothes up very shortly. The washing's just being done, so we'll get some clothes up shortly, and that'll give the protection that we need. So we're going to do the same thing with this planter, and this is one of my planters that I did the sort of kitchen scrap fill. We'll get a good row of lettuces in. As soon as these plants get established, we're going to be off to a flying start. I mean, I could go for direct sowings. It's absolutely perfect for going for direct sowing. The weather's warming up nicely. With the amount of weeds that are popping up all over the gardens, you can see that the soil is warming up nicely, and it's a good time to go for, direct sowings. So there we go. That's a full box of lettuce planted up. Now that's a really quick harvest that we're going to get from there. So it's time to get my carrots boxes planted up. And these are boxes that I've grown carrots in before, and so I know that I know that the mix that I'm using in here is suitable for growing carrots. It's mainly a mix of sand and compost. It's very low nutrition. So just give it a good, disturb it a little bit. You can see the soil's plenty wet. It's perfect. See, that's the thing I like about using these containers, is you can just move them as and when you need to. If they're in the wrong position, just move them to where you need them to be. And that works. So bismillah. Now with this, I'm just going to go for random sort of salt and pepper type planting. Just like you'd be sprinkling salt and pepper on your chips. Get them on. That's it, done. We will have to thin them. And carrots do really well in containers. Because they're raised up, they're protected from carrot root fly. And you can control the moisture levels in these a lot better as well. So let's just give this a top dressing of compost and we'll be good. And it's all homemade compost. So you can see all the big rough bits that are coming off. Yeah, it just needs a bit more. So that's raised our soil level back up as well. So what you might notice is as the carrots start growing, is they start rising up. And one of the advantages of growing like this in a small space, in a small container, is you can come in and you can just give it another top dressing, so you cover the tops of the carrots so they don't get eaten by slugs and they don't get eaten by pests. So it's a great little trick. Put this back to where it wants to be. And look at the spring onions in the corner. They'll give us a harvest very soon. So what you should notice is I'm going for fast maturing plants, so things that are going to crop really quickly. So lettuce, just 6 weeks, I'll harvest them. Carrots, again, 2 months, 2.5 months, I'll be able to pick baby carrots and leave the rest on to mature and get big carrots. I've got overwintered coriander that I'm picking from right now. We'll get more coriander in the ground very soon. It's time to start looking and thinking about the big bathtub and what's going on in here. See, look at the worms that are just in there. Look at the life. This is what I love about gardens and garden-made fertilizer and compost rather than shop-bought stuff. The shop-bought stuff you buy is absolutely dead. It's got no life to it. This stuff is just completely brimming with life. So just give the surface a little bit of disturbance so we can get rid of some of those weeds. But it's going to need some top dressing. So I've got 2 different types of compost here. I've got my vermicompost, which is this one, which is really rich. And I've got my homemade compost from pallet bins, which is a bit more balanced. So more compost over the top. So what I was expecting to happen was as that material all broke down, it'll all drop in height and we're going to have to top dress it in the spring. But we top dress it and we're good to go. Now in a bathtub like this, really, there's so much you can plant. Last year I had runner beans up the back. I mean, the support that I did for the runner beans was pretty poor, so the runner bean support kept on collapsing. But this year I think I'm going to go for something a little bit shorter than runner beans, and I'll just stick peas up the back. You could even have a squash in here and let it trail across the concrete on the ground and leave the roots up at the top. But what I'm going to do is stick to growing things like beetroot, stick to growing things like turnips and stuff in here. And that's what I'm going to do with my other container now. I'm going to just top dress this. It's dropped, you can see how high it was and how much it's dropped in height. So we'll just fill this up. So I've got some spinach plants in here that I've started off quite early. And now, start them off indoors. Now it's time for these to go outside and get planted up. So I'm going to separate them as individual plants. They can just go in here. Put the bigger plants in one row. What I'm going to do on this back row is I'm going to sow some, I'm going to sow raw turnips, and then, yeah, I'm going to sow raw turnips. I'm going to plant some fresh peas at the back, and we'll get some onions planted into here as well. You can see that there's so much that can be planted into this area. So I've left the lettuce in the sun for a bit too long. I better get these watered before they all start withering away. So you give it all a good watering. Make sure that make sure that soil settles in around the roots. So I'm going to keep on planting up this garden over the next month or so, and then you'll see the transformation happen here over the course of the next month. We'll start getting a lot of harvest from here as well. So I'm looking forward to it. It's an exciting time. This time always is. So this is part of the garden collaboration with Blue and Steve and the rest of the guys who I'm going to list in the description of this video, so do check them out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. And if you want to support our channel, you could always become a patron. So I'm going to leave it there for this one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.